What time is it? It's nation time.
Greetings and welcome to the AfterWords program. My name is Baba Kafense, your host. I'm joined by Bishop Dijanaba Akita, this week's presenter, preacher of our sermon, which is entitled Dare to Dream Again. Welcome to the AfterWords program, Bishop, and Happy New Year. How are you today?
Thank you. Happy New Year. Glad to be here as always.
Thank you, and we're glad to have you. The scripture for today's sermon comes from the book of Micah, chapter 6, verses 8. And you open the sermon by connecting the ancient practice of renewal to where we are in the new year, and more specifically to this particular time as we're on the brink of the Dr. Martin Luther King 96th birthday celebration. So could you elaborate on the connection or why this ancient practice of renewal is important to us at this particular time?
Thank you for asking that. Renewal is important because sometimes we get so caught up in the busyness of our day, or we get bogged down by the obstacles or the challenges that face us, and we don't realize that there's always an opportunity for us to have a new outlook, to refresh ourselves, to be renewed. You know, just as each day ends and the morning rises, that's a time for us to be renewed. You know, whether we take advantage of that opportunity is up to us, you know, in terms of getting a good, nice rest. Or even when you take a breath, in between each breath, it's a time for you to be refreshed and renewed. And African people understood this practice. You know, when you plant seeds, you don't lose your mind because you don't instantly see a fruit or sprouts or roots coming up. But we know that it's a process, and that each season, those plants can be renewed. They're not necessarily the same plant, but it's renewed because they have a good foundation. And we have good foundations within us. Each of us is endowed with a special divinity that gives us the ability to be co-creators, as we believe here in the Shrine of the Black Madonna. And that means we have the opportunity to refresh ourselves, to be renewed, and to be re-engaged in the struggle in which we have joined.
Yeah, and it really, I mean, for me, as I listen to you talk, it ties us to nature or to creation or to spirit. I think in ways that maybe more traditional theology don't. You care to elaborate on that a little, maybe?
Well, I think sometimes we think that things are fixed. Like this is just the way it is, and this is the course it's getting ready to take, and there's nothing we can do about it. All we have to do is sit back and pray. But we have the opportunity to have an impact on what happens. You know, Jesus said, anything I can do, you can do, and even greater things shall you do in my name. That means that we have the opportunity to do new things, but we don't, but sometimes we sit back and wait and let the circumstances surround us and believe that there's nothing we can do to change things because it's already in motion. But we're in motion as we speak as well. We're constantly moving. Even if we're standing still, your body's moving, your breath, respirations is taking place in your body. You know, thoughts are being manufactured in your mind. You're doing, your body is still circulating and moving. So even the notion that we're standing still is not really true.
And as you talk about Dr. King's life and his early work as a 17-year-old, I think it was, his early letter that he wrote, but you kind of arrive at the point that Dr. King made a clear delineation, emphasizing that he was about the social gospel. Could you say more about this idea of the social gospel?
Well, sometimes people get caught up in the language of theology, the philosophy of theology, and it becomes an intellectual exercise. Can I say the right words to make you intellectually believe that I'm so profound in my speaking? And as a minister, you know, we think about the lessons that we learn from the revolutionary who we call Jesus, the Black Messiah, who in his acts showed us that there is more than just speaking the word, but it's doing those things. He didn't just say the sick should be healed. He was healing the sick. He was giving new sight to the blind. He was raising people who were dead spiritually, physically, and doing those things. It wasn't just about pontificating. And in the church, we lose the sense of purpose when we just talk about things as if it's an intellectual exercise to be debated and not things to be acted upon. You know, the book of James, it says faith without good deeds is quite dead. So it's things that we need to do. So when he talked about he was concerned with the social ministry, the social gospel. That meant, helping the underprivileged, making sure that those conditions that his people were living under could be changed, and that they realized that they could be changed themselves. And I was really amazed because as many years as I've studied Dr. King, every year I learned something new. So that's why I said I had to have a new, refreshed look at Dr. King and find out it was more than just the speech that he made, in Washington, D.C. There was more to him than that.
Yes, indeed. As we reflect on the political times now, and just historically, we see a lot. You lay out the accomplishments in the sermon, many of the accomplishments that Dr. King made. But we also find ourselves in a time where many of those accomplishments are being undone. So, as we find ourselves at a time of renewal, how should we be responding to the undoing of this work of the great Dr. Martin Luther King?
Well, one of the things that I find comforting or that I understand is that those things that happened took time. They didn't happen overnight, but it was a continuous struggle that went on to gain those accomplishments. The Montgomery bus boycott didn't end in just a week or a month. It took several months before they got the result that they needed. Those legislations were being worked on for years and years and years. Even the thought of having Dr. King's birthday, you would think that after the sacrifices he made, that it would be a no-brainer that you could say, oh yes, let's celebrate his birthday. But it took 15 years just to get legislation to honor a man who gave his life in service to God and in service to the community. So when we think about the things that are being undone, it doesn't mean the work is done. It just means we have to intensify our efforts. One of the things I was able to do is I was able to listen in on the Zoom meeting from the Win with Black Women. And one of the things that the sisters were bringing up is that even though the effort that thousands of Black women and other organizations came together in terms of supporting our Vice President Kamala Harris run for the presidency, even though she did not win, we were able to elect 550 Black women to political offices across the nation in this past election. And so sometimes you think, just because something doesn't happen, that nothing is happening. But there's an opportunity for us to build upon what we've done. And because we know that this is a protracted struggle, that means we have to keep working. We have to keep moving. We can't stop. We can't give up.
Indeed. And how do the best self theology or best self programs of the Pan-African Orthodox Christian Church align with and or differ from the theology and ideology embraced by Dr. King?
Well, I think one of the things that we believe is that, Dr. King said, we have a relationship. I thought about the speech he made from Hunter's College when he said the connection that we have with our brothers and sisters and the inspiration that we get from brothers and sisters across the seas, and that we have a heritage and a history that can be inspirational and can direct us. And what we believe in terms of our best self theology is that our obligation is to not just serve God, but also to grow and reach our highest potential. That's what it means about to be religious, that we're going to reach our highest potential and develop ourselves. So we've been given talents and we've been given skills. We've got to use those skills. And that was the thing that Dr. King did. He used his skills in oratory and tactical organization, in logistical, strategic plans that he put out. He didn't just talk. He also organized and pulled together people who could make sure that the efforts were successful. And that's the thing that we talk about in best self theology. Use our gifts, use our talents, use those skills to help us to move forward.
Thank you very much. And we are at the end of the program. Is there anything that you may like to say as we close?
Well, one of the things that I say, when I mentioned the impact that Dr. King had, when I said he dared to dream, sometimes you think about people daring you, like, as a child, somebody say, I dare you. And that was like, okay, if you really want to show your courage, you step out there and do something. But he had a dream, but he dared to dream in a time when it seemed impossible for us to reach those goals. He had the audacity to think that he could do something. And we have to dare to dream, even in light of the peril that seems to confront us. Even when things seem like they're at this darkest hour, we should dare to push ourselves and to move forward. And I think that that's one of the lessons that we learned from Dr. King, that we can dare ourselves to dream bigger and better and greater.
Thank you so much for a powerful sermon and an insightful conversation. And I'd like to thank our viewers as well and urge them to continue to join us every week for the Bila Kuta sermon and the afterwards discussion that follows. And I hope everyone has a very productive Martin Luther King Day celebration. I'd like to close with the words of our patron saint, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Up, you mighty race, and accomplish what you will.
Shay.
What time is it? It's nation time.